Hi, this is Saipon Teja back with another video. In this video, we will discuss what is a constructor, the rules of a constructor with examples, and finally, we will discuss the difference between a constructor versus method. Also, a few interview questions which will ask in your placement interview process. So, without further delay, let's jump into the discussion. What is Here some interview questions will help you in understand the constructors. What is a constructor? How many types of a constructors are in Java? What are the major difference between constructor versus method? What is a copy constructor? Why return type is not allowed for the constructor? Why constructor name is similar to the class name? Can we have a constructor in the interface? These are some tackle questions which will help you to understand a better in the constructor itself. What is a constructor? A constructor in Java is a block of code similar to a method that is used to initialize the object using a new new operator. In other words, a constructor is a special method that is used to create an instance of a class. It is used to initialize an object. A constructor within a class allows the constructing the objects of a class at a runtime. It invokes whenever object of a class is created using the new operator. Using the new operator. This is the important thing that you need to highlight it. When you are going for interviews, these are the questions they may ask. What is a constructor? What are the rules of a constructor? How you are going to define a constructor? And they may ask what is the difference between a constructor and method. This is the one question I will discuss at the end of the part. But keep an eye on it. These are three questions they may ask in the interview itself. Right? This is a major one that you need to keep a focus on it. Because these are the rules that declare whether it is a constructor or whether it is a method, whether you will get an error. So the major rules are a constructor must be the same name which you are defining as a class name. Let's say you are defining a class as a box. So let's say you are defining a class box, right? In the class box, you need to define the box as a constructor. The second thing is a constructor doesn't have a return type. So why do you get the question, right? So I will give this as an assignment for you or think it as a task and check out in the Google section or anything. So let me know what is a return type. Why do constructor doesn't have a return type? If you know the answer, just type in the comment section below so that if it is right or wrong, we will verify it. So, and also a constructor can be defined using any of the access specifiers. It might be public, it might be private, it might be default. You can declare, you may declare it, right? So when you are declaring it, so it can be accessed with any of the access specifiers. And the next thing is a constructor must be there is no limit for using only one constructor. A class must contain more than one constructor. What it can call it as overloaded. So it's nothing but in the method overloaded, we call it a method overloaded, right? In the constructor, maybe constructor overloaded. I will explain with the examples what is a method overloaded with a constructor example and also how you going to declare it. So you can see here small example which will help you to understand it. Right? We have a class test. Inside a class test, you are going to define a test. Inside a test, you will write your logic or initializing variables. You are going to initialize the variables, right? Once you initialize the variables, how you are going to call it, right? So this inside the static method, you are going to define by using the new keyword. It will create the object of a test class. It will use the object of my test class and invokes the constructor to initialize the created object, because once you are going to declare it so that you can call the constructor, right? How you are going to call? So test t1 is nothing but test. Inside the test, you are going to call as variable. From the test, you are going to using the new keyword that you are getting over here, right? There are two types of constructors, which are default constructor, which only have only one constructor, which without no argument type. There are parameterized constructor which have some parameters inside a constructor. Let's see with a small example so that we can understand in a detail. Let's see with an example. We have a class, public school class over here with a zero parameter constructor. If the zero parameter constructor, you may call it as default constructor. If you have one parameterized constructor or two parameters constructor, then it is a parameterized constructor. You can see there is a one class, the second class over here, and this is a third class. There are three constructor inside a class. Then it is called overloaded. So if a class contains more than one constructor, then it is overloaded. So why do we use overloading? You have a question, right? Overloaded, why we use the overloaded is overloaded constructors are very common to use in Java programming based on the needs because they provide many ways to create an object of a particular class. Similarly, constructor overloaded allows initialize objects with different data types with different type of data. So you can see in a class over here they have a school, but we don't have any parameterized constructor. In the school string name, you have a string name itself over here. In the third constructor, you have a string name and also int roll number, because there are different type of data that you are going to initialize by using different types. This is the use of overloaded, because in some cases you need to use only school of method, but in some cases you need to mention the string, but in some cases you need to use int roll number. Let me make it clear for you. When you are going for a Aadhaar card, the Aadhaar card itself will give only a number. It's a number which will define all of your name, phone number, everything, right? You know only your Aadhaar card number. But a few cases they need to ask your Aadhaar card number as well as your date. So the first example will says that the Aadhaar card number, but in the second example it says that the Aadhaar number as well as your date of birth. So the variables might be changes. The parameters might be changes based on their needs of a rules, right? This is why the overloaded will uses. What is a constructor? This is the one question which was faced my interviews. I have attended at least 4 to 5 interviews. They are asked what is a constructor. This is a one major question they may ask it. So keep an eye on it. It will help you in your interview itself. And also they may ask what is a constructor and difference between a constructor versus method. So in a constructor, the class name must be the same as the name of the class. When you are declaring a class A, you need to declare a method. In the constructor you need to A of, right? Similarly, the constructor you need to define, but in the method it might be anything. If you are defining a class A, but you need not to make sure that A is not a method, right? You may declare it as a B of method, you may C of method, right? Second thing is the constructor doesn't have any return type, but a method has a return type. A constructor can be invoked implicitly by the system. It is automatically implicitly by the system, but in the method it is invoked by the programmer, nothing but which is used by us, right? What is the purpose of the constructor is it is used to initialize the object. Let's say you have a university class, there are multiple number of objects you need to initialize, right? So the reason why we use a constructor is might be in id, there might be a string name, there might be university subjects. So it's all the things or you need to initialize, right? The purpose of the constructor is used for the initializing objects. Similarly, in the method, the consists of Java code to be executed, because how you are executing is there might be a method, right? The constructors and method are both are overloaded. This is the one similar point which is used in the constructor as well as the methods. So I hope you learn something new from the constructor. If you learn something valuable, please hit the like button and also subscribe to my channel for more such tech interview updates. Until then, keep practicing some interview questions and also shortcuts. Bye bye. See you in the next video.